you doing, YouTube? Listen, I'm responding to a video I had seen initially concerning, I think it was entitled "Why Black Men Don't Date Black Women." I believe by a young lady named Dashni7, Dashni, the number seven, and I think she's got her YouTube channel is I Trust Me YouTube. Any account, there are many questions that she posed, laid out pretty articulately the situation, and it was actually presented as a crisis, which it is. It is a crisis concerning our relationships that we have one with another in the community of the Aboriginal indigenous people of the planet. Now, I know you say, who are those? Well, that people that looks like me, people with my phenotype, people that has my hue, my pigmentation, my pedigree. Some would call us black people, coloreds, African Americans, Negroes, the such like. Well, one of the reasons why we have some of those issues in which she addressed and many others with like videos that I've actually viewed is because we don't know who we are. We don't know our own identity as a nation of people and a nations of people. We don't have an identity as it relates to a landmass where we've come from, we've originated from, where we've dominated for few millions of years. We don't have that concept of our our history, our true rich history, and even with the turbulent history that has unfolded in what I say recent past during the time of the latest open, accepted slave trade, because slavery still is going on. The capture of groups of people um, and put into servitude, abusive relationships is still going on. It still occurs today as I speak. Now, but the particular time and I'm referencing is the Atlantic slave trade, where it has been one of the most brutal holocausts that has happened to a people that are Aboriginal indigenous of the globe. I say that because the facts are clear. Black people, African Americans, Negroes, coloreds, we are the Aboriginal people of the planet. Now, black people is not, or to call us black, is not identifying a nationality, is not identifying a status of people that have a pedigree and anchored to the land of the territory by birth, by the mitochondrial DNA through their mother that have been produced to carry on a legacy. So there is no such thing as a black nation. Now, we may think about the Nation of Islam, which speaks about the interest of black people, but that still is not a nation. There is not a landmass, and black has no relevance to an identity in respects to a people of status and the affairs of men. Neither is colored, Negro, African American, and I know you say African, and I'm in America. I have lineage from my ancestors out of the cradle of civilization on the Nile Valley. Um, that's where mankind had emanated from millions of years ago, and that's true. We have, and some of us did come over through the transatlantic slave ships and were um, enslaved by the ruling classes at that particular time. However, there are also some of us, and many of us, that are aboriginal to the North American continent. So when you're stripped, however, and raped of your whole nationality, you're raped and stripped of your language. You're stripped from your religious worship, from your government, from your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. You're stripped and raped from your own pride as a people on the planet, as an aboriginal people of the planet. When you're raped of that consciousness, when you're raped of your history, and then created into another person, into another breed by mixed breeding, by breeding by the hands of the slave master, you don't know who you are. You're what they created. So I want to respond in respects to this paradigm that has taken place in our society of Aboriginal people on the planet. Some call us Moors. We are Moors. We are from the Moroccan Empire, the Moorish Empire of Morocco, which was in North Africa. Out of Morocco and Spain, the territory was not just in that region. It also extended from Egypt to the northwest gate called North America, and particularly the United States of America and its republic. And they reigned from 711 to 1492 in terms of that jurisdictional territory. However, there are other, once again, aboriginal, indigenous people to North American continent, and during the transatlantic slave trade, not only were the individuals that were extracted from northwest, actually a whole west coast of Africa called the Gold Coast, were extracted and sent to North America, whether that was United States of America, Central America, and South America. They were extracted and enslaved and placed in those particular parts. But once again, there were also Aboriginal people here that had not been taken from the slave trades. We were already here on the North American continent, and they were also enveloped. They were also entangled. They were also engrafted into this slave trade, and they too, like the ones that were taken off the Gold Coast of Africa, Al Kubalan, their identity was raped from them, they're stripped from them. So it's from this particular basis in which I would like to respond, because if you don't know who you are, if you don't have an identity, and if you're working off of an identity that someone else had projected upon you, if you're working off of an identity that they put on you by and branding you or branding you with names. They didn't just brand you with a rod of hot iron and put it on your skin and your flesh. They branded your mind. They branded your emotions. They branded your will. They branded your intellect. They branded your soul. You see, and you and I were created into a whole nother being, a being of servitude, a being of wildness, a being of untamedness. I'm talking about to the extent that when I say untamed, I'm saying we are out of our mind. They literally took our aboriginal mind, our creative mind, our mind, that mind that gave birth to societies, that gave birth to governments, that gave birth to law, that gave structure, that gave aquifers. We're talking about hydraulics. We're talking about sciences. We're talking about the mathematics. We're talking about astrology. They ripped that mind from us and gave us their mind to serve. And then where we look at each other with disdain and disrespect. So from that perspective, I want to address your question, young lady, young man. And I hope, I pray that I will bring some kind of clarity and resolution, because what we need is healing. And the first, I believe, the first approach to being healed, is to identify that we were wounded, that we were subjugated, and we were dominated. In many respects, we still are dominated. I would like to bring to your attention a book, or a letter, actually, by Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch was an individual who had come from a territory, uh, the West Indies, to talk to the slave owners here on the North American continent, because he felt that he could assist in giving clarity as to how to better produce your slaves, that they would be beneficial to the cause. And so I don't want to speak my words. I want you to hear the words of Willie Lynch himself. So I want to hit some particular points. I had put a video together earlier on this, and it was so long, and it wasn't able to download, so I'm kind of redoing this video, but just bear with me for a moment here, and I will get right to it. Mr. Willie Lynch says this: I caught a whiff. This is after he landed here on the shores of the Virginia colony that he came to. He said, I caught a whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple of miles back. You're not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you're having uprisings. Slaves are running away, and your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I don't need to elaborate. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. However, I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. And here is his method, ladies and gentlemen. He said, here I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control slaves for at least 300 years. Now, I have outlined a number of differences amongst the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about why you and I, male and female, one, can't get along. Two, you say the black man wants to be with the white woman, don't want to be with the black woman or the Moorish woman or whatever we call ourselves, but we are, from a legal standpoint, our last name that, legal name that we have walked by in this earth unmolested were Moors, one of the last names, one of the legal last names. Some are Choctaws, some are Chickasaws, some are Cherokees, some are Iroquois. It all depends on where you were on this North American continent. I know some of you saying those are Indian names. Well, the Indians actually were the Blackamoors or the Black Moors or the Moors. The Indians or the Aboriginals of this continent are the people who are in the dominant position or in rulership. Okay, so and so when the European came here, he had to separate us. He had to kill us. The nature of the European is one to rob, kill, steal, and destroy. Don't make no mistakes about it. Okay, let's remember that. The nature of the European in power, he emanates, he releases the spirit of the devil. In other words, the European in power is the devil. Well, the devil comes to what? Rob, kill, steal, and destroy. All right? He comes to rob you of your identity, okay? Destroy you of your lineage and your heritage, your pedigree, okay? And kill you if you get in his way in order to advance those causes, and steal your natural resources, and then steal your own identity, okay? So many places across this planet, he's stolen that. And so the process of him doing that, he has to divide and conquer. And Mr. Lynch has provided a formula. And one of his formulas is that he would take fear. He said, I use fear. Distrust. We don't trust each other anymore. Why? Where did that come from? Why is it that our particular people, what we call black, Negroes, colored, African Americans, okay, Moors, Cherokee, Choctaw, whatever we want to go for, but so for the sake of identifying our pedigree, the people who I'm talking about, I'm going to use the word black, okay? So you'll know who we're talking about. There will be no mistakes about it, no ambiguity. I'm talking about the black people on North American continent. I'm talking about South American continent. and central continent of America. I'm talking about worldwide. This is just not a situation that is depicted on this continent. This happens in our Kubuland, known as Africa. This happens anywhere we are on the planet, where you and I have the worst social relationships between each other. So that was what this guy did, and others have done. They had committed themselves to the science of social engineering, the ability to control the minds, will, and emotions of a people for the benefit of those controllers. And this is what he's done. So he said, I use fear. One, how does he use fear? He used it by force. He used it by violence. He used fear by weaponry. I'm talking about weaponry of mass destruction. Okay? He uses the threat of Holocaust, of another Holocaust to your people, to bring you under subjection. First of all, he has to get you. He has to capture you. He has to enslave your mind. He has to enslave your consciousness. He has to enslave your appetite for freedom. So once he does that, he puts fear in you. Fear brings torment. Okay? Fear brings torment. Understand that. So he used fear. Then he used distrust between us. And how does he use distrust between us? I will read his process that he laid down, implemented, and this is what they're doing and have done. He said, and I'll use envy for controlling purposes. Envy. I envy that person for what they have, what they don't have that I have. You understand? So these methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. At the top of my list, age. But it is there only because it starts with an A. But the other thing he uses, he said he uses color or shade. All right? That means phenotype, or, light and dark. He'll say this a little later. He said there is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantation, status on plantation. Status on what kind of job you have, okay? What kind of job the woman have, the black woman have, that he's allowed to have in greater numbers than the black man, because you can't give a black man economic power, because if you give a black man economic power, he's going to get the idea that he can, unless he's controlled, he can then turn back to his community and bless his community and raise them up from the ashes of degradation. Okay? So use status. Use the attitudes of the owners to oppress them. There, he uses the attitudes of the people that you're around, the people you work for, the people who you go to school with, who your teachers, your educators, okay? People at the bank, people at a law firm, people in the courthouse. He used these attitudes to suppress and oppress you, okay? To demean your status on earth, all right? He said, I use people who got fine hair or coarse hair, tall or short. Now, let me park here for a moment. He said, I use fine hair or coarse hair. Now, check this out. How many sisters don't appreciate, when they look in the mirror, and brothers, right now I'm dealing with the sisters to make it plain. When you look in the mirror, and you see your beautiful crown that you have on the top of your head, whether it's a short crown or whether it's a big woolly crown, you see that crown and don't see value in it. You see the God-given natural curls that flows from the temple of your crown, that flows from the soul of your mitochondrial DNA, of the melanin that you were given to create the pigmentation and the growth of your hair. This hair was given to you for your glory, but you don't see it as glorious. You see it as ugly. So what you do, you take straightening comb, and so I understand, but this is what we do. The reason why we take straightening combs is because the image that we were given by our oppressor as what the status or the iconic view of beauty is, we see what he said beauty was, and we try to assimilate. We try to mimic that. We try to memorex that. So what we've done, sisters and brothers, we memorex what the slave master has branded on our consciousness as the standard of beauty. So it take the hair. This is what he's saying. Fine hair. When babies come out, ooh, he got some good hair. She got some good hair. Good hair? There's no such thing as good hair or bad hair. So these are the things that our slave master used. And he has you to look at yourself as ugly. Now I'm going to get part 2 right here.